Hi, how are you today?
I'm good, Daniel. How are you?
I'm okay, thanks. I really enjoyed the film. It was great fun to watch.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
So I was wondering, how did you come across this project or get involved with it? And what was the writing process like?
So it came across from actually a producer's wife who I was having dinner with, and they knew that I was working on a completely separate serial killer story in Phoenix, and my producer friend just asked if he's like, oh, if you like serial killer stories, you ought to talk to my wife, and so she then proceeded to unpack this really fascinating story to me that was both terrifying and beautiful in many ways because it's part this wonderful story of her and her sister um,
Mm,
going through what ends up being a really horrific experience that they come out on the other side. And I found it inspirational as a story of survival, um, but also terrifying as a parent myself that this sort of thing could happen and did happen often in the 70s. And so I basically took that true story and got together with Sharon Cobb, my co-writer, and we really just approached the script from that POV, the point of view of the survivor, and kind of letting that be our guiding light as far as the narrative goes, and not really getting into too much of the serial killer side of it, since she didn't really know what was happening with the serial killer. She just saw this van stalking her.
that's great to hear. And the film is based on true events, like you said, and things that still happen currently. So I was wondering what research you did when making this film. And did you get upset or the cast or crew get upset when filming because you knew it's based on true stuff that happened?
I mean, I think there's a certain level of authenticity that you really have to at least know what you're dealing with when you're getting into a story like this. So there was a great pains taken in terms of research,
Mm,
um, trying to talk with detectives, in addition to just reading and doing a lot of research and archival, both video and newspaper and whatever articles existed. For us, though, ultimately, since we were really telling it from the Annie character's perspective, she didn't know of any of these other things happening.
mm.
So it was really for us to know kind of the world in which this was happening, more so than it was to add those elements into her world.
That's good to hear. And how did you find the locations for the film and what was the casting process like?
So we filmed in Shreveport, Louisiana. We scouted in Florida. It's a Florida story, so I really wanted to film it in Florida. But we live in a world where film incentives sort of rule the day. And we looked at Savannah and then ultimately selected Shreveport, Louisiana to cheat as Florida. Um, and then as far as the casting process goes, that was a lot of fun. I think when you're casting a film, that's sort of the first moment where you start feeling the magic kind of coming alive of what can be, the possibilities that start kind of erupting as you start looking at different people for different roles. And certainly when we cast Madison, that was sort of a big moment because we knew we had our Annie, and I felt like she was going to service the role very well. She's
Mm.
an exceptional actress. Um, and then being able to build around her with her sister Breck Bassinger playing Margaret, who's so much fun to work with, and Sky Jackson, who is just hilarious. And then eventually getting to the parents, and both Ali Larder and Sean Astin came on board as executive producers in addition to playing the parents in the film. And that was just really humbling that they wanted to see this film get made and ensure that that happened, and be a part of it as executive producers.
That's cool. They were producers, and I loved how the cast were all great and fantastic. So I was wondering, my next question is, throughout the film, we hardly see the man's face clearly. So I was wondering what the creative decision behind that was. And it almost feels like the van itself is the killer in some ways. That was what I got from it personally. Was that intentional?
We wanted to allude to that because Billy Mansfield is incarcerated for crimes against women and is admitted to strangling women, um, and there's still one victim for the property that has not been identified 50 years later. and they just identified 2 years ago one of the victims who had remained unidentified for 40 plus years. Um, so yes, in addition to him, his father was, incarcerated for crimes against, sexual assault against minors, and so we felt like we needed to, um, give a nod to the possibility that, that there was other family involved, whether or not, anybody has been arrested outside of Billy for that. We just felt that that was something that we would give a nod to, and we never mentioned Billy Mansfield by name in the film. Only in interviews like this, in terms of the who it's based on. But as far as not seeing the killer's face, that was part of it. And the other part of it was really seeing this story through Annie's point of view. And if she never saw the killer, then we didn't see the killer. And that was sort of another kind of, guiding light for us.
And my final question before I go is, do you have a favorite memory from set or a funny moment?
I mean, there's always funny moments on set, or good memories. I remember, I remember a moment where we had filmed like 3 or 4 family scenes in a row, and then we got to a thriller moment, and all of a sudden I felt like, oh, it feels like we've been filming kind of a family movie, but now after filming this, I feel like, all right, now we're cooking. Now we're into making a movie. And so I said out loud to Madison. She looked at me, and I just said, like, I just kind of nodded my head, and she was like, what? And I was like, now we're making a movie. And she was like, she kind of looked back at me like, well, what have you been doing for the last 2 weeks? And I was like, you know what I mean? She just kind of laughed, and then later she would just kind of repeat that back to me after it kind of became our thing. So if we felt like that was a really good moment, or like we got it with something, we would just kind of look at each other and say, now we're making a movie. Eventually, for my birthday, she actually put it on a cap. And for my birthday, so I don't know if you see this, but
That's so cool.
yeah, so she gave it to me as a birthday gift.
That's funny. Well, thank you for chatting with me. And it's amazing hearing how much you did for this film, like talking to people about it and doing all the research and stuff. And it was a great film, and I hope lots of people see it because it's quite an important film to watch. And I hope you have a fantastic day.
Thank you so much. Have a great holiday, Daniel.
You're welcome. Bye.